And we're very lucky today that our speakers come probably the furthest from California, where he's currently towards the end of his study, having received a Nuffield Scholarship. And he's been looking at agricultural labour policy. And today he's going to share his insights on different seasonal labour models, what's working, what's not, and what it means for the future of seasonal labour. So it's my great pleasure to welcome Martin Chavez. Please give him a big hand.
Good morning, everyone. It's quite chilly today. I come from 42, 43 degree weather back home right now, which is 100 and something in Fahrenheit. I'm already doing Celsius. Before I tell you about traveling to 12 countries across 5 continents, I'd like to share with you where this journey really began. I grew up in California as the son of Mexican immigrant farm workers. Agriculture wasn't simply something my family did, it was our way of life. Like thousands of families around the world, my parents worked long hours so opportunities like this one would be possible one day. Looking back now, I realize they also taught me one lesson that has stayed with me throughout my career. Every harvest begins with people. I didn't know then, but those early experiences would eventually shape my career and lead me halfway around the world. Today, I serve as the Farmer Relations Director for Pacific Farm Management in California's Central Valley. We're one of California's largest agricultural employers in the state. During peak harvest seasons, we employ roughly 5,000 employees any given week. So peak harvest season is going on right now, so I get to escape that and come hang out with you guys. California is one of the world's most productive ag regions. We produce roughly 3/4 of the fruit, nearly half of the vegetables, and almost all of the tree nuts grown in the United States, and 80% of the almonds globally, to put into perspective. Every year, our industry relies on several hundred thousands of workers alongside an approximately 40,000 H2A workers, which is the equivalent of your guys' RSE scheme, or POM scheme if you're from Australia, to help meet our seasonal labor needs. Labor isn't just something I talk about, it's something I work on every day. Today, I work closely with growers across California, helping them navigate one of the biggest challenges our industry faces, finding and retaining a reliable workforce. Like many of you, labor shortages influence almost every decision our growers make. Whether it's pruning, thinning, harvesting, maintaining quality, none of that happens without skilled people. For years, I believed our challenges were unique to California. I thought perhaps because of our size, our crops, and our dependence on seasonal labor, I wanted to understand how other countries were responding to agriculture workforce shortages and what lessons we could apply back home. In 2024, I was fortunate to be selected as a Nuffield International Farming Scholar. For those unfamiliar with Nuffield, it's an international scholarship that enables agriculture professionals to study global challenges and bring those lessons home. I believe there's a couple of scholars here, including Kate, Simon Cook, and then Ton, the fruit nerd. Over the course of my scholarship, I visited 12 countries across 5 continents. I left California thinking I was trying to solve a California problem. I came home realizing I was studying agriculture's shared challenge. Throughout my travels, I visited farms, grower organizations, labor providers, universities, government agencies across 12 countries. Whether I was speaking to apple growers here in New Zealand, table grape growers in Chile, vegetable producers in Spain, I kept hearing remarkably similar conversations. Before leaving California, I expected every country to have a different labor story. Instead, I kept hearing the same concerns. How do we find enough workers? How do we retain experienced workers? How do we remain competitive while also taking care of the people who make our industry possible? No matter where I traveled, one topic kept resurfacing: COVID-19. The labor challenge existed long before the pandemic, but COVID exposed just how dependent our food systems had become on seasonal and migrant workers. Whether workers stayed home because of health concerns or whether they couldn't make it to the next country because of border restrictions. Growers everywhere were asking the same question: who's going to harvest our crop? By 2050, the world will need to produce approximately 60% more food. At the same time, fewer people are choosing careers in agriculture. That's when I realized this wasn't California's challenge, it was agriculture's shared challenge. One of the things that struck me most was how often I heard the same phrase. Back home in California, we often hear these jobs are jobs Americans simply aren't willing to do. Here in New Zealand, I heard a similar remark. These are jobs Kiwis aren't willing to do. In Chile, it was the same. Chileans aren't willing to do these jobs. I heard similar comments almost everywhere I traveled. The nationality changed, the conversations didn't. At first, I assumed it was simply about wages. At least back home, that's what the media tells us. While wages certainly matter, I came to realize something deeper was happening. In many countries, agriculture no longer carries the same social value it once did. Too often, agriculture work is seen as something you aspire to leave rather than pursue. That's not simply a labor challenge, it's also a cultural challenge. If we want to strengthen agriculture's workforce, we also have to restore the dignity and respect of the value of agricultural work. One of the most interesting conversations I had was with the farm manager in Romania. He told me, we export qualified workers to Western Europe and we import unskilled workers from the stand countries. That one sentence captured a much bigger reality. Agricultural labor has become global. Around the world, every country I visited found a different way to meet its labor needs. Here in New Zealand, the growers developed the RSE scheme with the Pacific nations. Australia followed a similar model with the PALM scheme. In Spain and in Chile, many growers rely on workers from neighboring countries through long-standing migration patterns rather than formal seasonal labor programs. California has historically relied on workers from Mexico and Latin America, like my parents, rather than forming a formal seasonal labor program. In the United Kingdom, Brexit fundamentally changed where growers could get their labor from, having to look well beyond Europe to fill seasonal jobs. Different policies, different labor sources, the same challenge. What impressed me most about New Zealand wasn't simply that you guys had access to seasonal workers. It was the way the RSE scheme had been built, built long-term partnerships that benefit growers, workers, Pacific communities. In many ways, California has been fortunate for decades. For decades, our proximity to Mexico and long-standing migration patterns have provided growers with access to reliable agricultural workers and workforce. Because of that workforce developed more naturally over time, we simply haven't had the same urgency as New Zealand to develop a labor program solely dedicated to horticulture in California. As immigration policy in the United States becomes increasingly uncertain, I believe that's one of the biggest lessons California can learn from New Zealand, especially the pastoral care program you guys incorporate here. One of the biggest lessons from my travels is that labor policy has real consequences. When access to workers changes, growers don't simply stop needing people. They simply have to find them somewhere else. Labor markets don't disappear, they adapt. One researcher I met with in the Netherlands said, migrants don't steal jobs, they fill vacancies. Countries are no longer just competing in global food markets, they're also competing for a reliable agricultural workforce. One of the things I expected to find during my travels was one country with the perfect labor program. I didn't. But I did notice something the strongest systems had in common. They didn't simply recruit workers, they invested in people. One visit really stayed with me was the one to Horticulture here in New Zealand. I believe Tahoe is somewhere around here. Yeah. As someone who works for Pacific Farm Management in California, I was naturally interested to see how another farm management company approached its workforce. Going into this visit, I was hoping to learn about systems, technology, operations, or at least that's what I expected to learn. Instead, I found myself talking about people. One of the leaders I met, Tahoe, like I mentioned, knew every worker by name. He genuinely cared how they were doing. I still remember walking around the facilities, him stopping by, talking to the workers, asking them, hey, are you feeling better? He spoke with pride about his workers that have returned year after year. He shared stories of workers that had built businesses back home, had built homes, had built a new, better quality of life for their families back home. It reminded me that the strongest workforce programs aren't solely built on policies or labor schemes. They're built on relationships. Across every country I visited, the most successful growers understood something simple. Workers aren't just seasonal labor. They're skilled agriculture professionals whose experience directly influences productivity, quality, and the success of the harvest. Returning workers don't simply fill vacancies. They understand the crop. They understand the quality standards. They mentor new employees. That experience is incredibly valuable. When people feel respected, supported, and valued, they're more likely to return. That creates better outcomes for workers, better outcomes for growers, and ultimately more resilient food systems. One of the biggest lessons I would take home to California is that building a sustainable workforce isn't just about recruitment, it's about relationships. Another common theme throughout my travels was the role of technology in agriculture. As labor shortages continue to grow, almost every conversation eventually turns into the same question: can technology help solve the labor challenge? My honest, humble opinion, I don't think AI can save ag alone. I visited farms using robotics, artificial intelligence, automation, precision agriculture, and other innovative technologies. In California, we're investing heavily in automation, and I saw similar investments across New Zealand, Australia, Chile, Europe. But even the most technologically advanced operations I visited, the message was remarkably the same. Technology shouldn't aim to replace workers. It should help them. As you see here, that's not an autonomous tractor, that's a burro, that's what they call them. It helps the worker take the fruit out rather than having to lug it out. The goal shouldn't be to replace the experience of skilled worker. It should be to amplify it. Technology should remove the most repetitive and physically demanding tasks, allowing skilled workers to focus on the work that requires experience, judgment, and care. The farms making the greatest progress weren't choosing between innovation and people. They were investing in both. Technology and skilled workers don't compete with each other. They complement one another, building a stronger future for our agriculture. When I left California, I thought I was trying to solve a California problem. 12 countries later, I realized I was studying agriculture's shared challenge. Every country had different crops, different policies, different cultures, but one thing was never changed. Agriculture has always been and always will be about people. I'm incredibly grateful to everyone that welcomed me into their farms, businesses, and communities throughout this journey. To everyone here in New Zealand, thank you for your generosity, your willingness to share your successes, your challenges, and your ideas. California has a great deal to learn from New Zealand. One of the biggest lessons from my travels is that no one country has all the answers, but every country has something to teach. I began this journey because of two people on the screen, my parents. They taught me the value of hard work, sacrifice, and agriculture long before I ever boarded a plane. After traveling across 5 continents, I still believe the lessons they taught me as a child. The most important one, every harvest begins with people. Thank you.